Hi guys, I hope you're all well. It's currently Sunday the 14th of January 2018 and welcome to another full day in Port Douglas. And we're starting the day off at the marina in Port Douglas because we've got something very exciting that we're planning on doing today and something that's been on my bucket list for a long time, which I'm hoping by the end of today I'll be able to tick off and say I've done it. We're making our way over to the boat that's going to be taking us towards the Great Barrier Reef. So what's the purpose of our visit to the Great Barrier Reef? Well, you can't travel all the way to the other side of the world without going snorkeling around the Great Barrier Reef. It's something that I've always wanted to do, but I'm not going to lie, I am both excited and very apprehensive about this whole trip. Because as you know, I am a big chap. I am carrying a lot of excess weight and I'm worried for when it comes round to getting fitted for the wetsuit, they might not be big enough, but we'll cross that bridge when we come to it because we still have a couple of hours boat ride to take us to the first of 3 snorkeling locations. And inevitably 2 hours later we reached the first diving site where we had to get changed into our wetsuit. Now I got their largest wetsuit possible, the largest one they had, and it was an extremely tight squeeze into it. And as you can see, yes, I look like a massive elephant seal. Thankfully my mum didn't record me trying to get into the wetsuit because I can tell you, you would have got a belly full of laughs if she had managed to record me getting into that thing. One of the main reasons to get changed into our wetsuit, the crew did mention that it is jellyfish season and they do want you to wear a wetsuit, cover your body up, so just in case there are jellyfish about, it's unlikely that the stinger will penetrate the wetsuit. This is why we also have on these wetsuits mittens to go over your hands and a hood to cover your head and part of your face as well. And the next step of all this was getting a very large pair of flippers or fins. Now, I've never worn these things before, so it's a new experience for me and it's going to be fun to see how I get on. But anyway, the time had come for us to dip our toes in the ocean and start snorkeling away and seeing as much as the coral reef as possible. But first, I had to give the flippers or the fins a go. And as soon as I got into the water, it quickly became apparent that these flippers, these fins, are just messing up my whole buoyancy. Because normally, I'm pretty much like a cork. You know, I very easily just float. But with these massive fins on, it was making it very difficult for me to get my buoyancy right, or balance, or whatever you want to call it. So I had to resort to using some floats or floaties or whatever, which are some long foam tubes which you can stick under your body to help you balance yourselves as you're paddling along. And then of course you're just completely wowed and overwhelmed by the sights that you're seeing. All of the tropical fish, all of the corals that you're seeing. And it's amazing, as you're swimming up to the coral reefs and as the water depths get shallower, the water temperature increases. But unfortunately we did also see quite a lot of coral bleaching. This is the effect due to the seawater temperatures increasing over the years, which is the effect of global warming and as a result kills the coral reefs. And this is one of the big problems affecting one of the 7 natural wonders of the world, is the rising sea temperatures due to the global temperatures increasing year on year. So I'm just grateful that at least I've got to see this wonder in my lifetime, because who knows, if we don't change our ways and if we don't do anything to start protecting the environment more, what's to say in the next 50 years the Great Barrier Reef might not be so great. And once I'm swimming around and over the coral reefs, it's so easy and forget all about time. But you've got to remember to keep popping your head up and locating where the boat is so you're not drifting too much by the current. But the whole experience is truly wonderful. But after 45 minutes snorkeling at the first location, it was time to make our way back towards the boat, because the boat had to take us to our second snorkeling location. But whilst we were travelling over towards the second snorkeling spot, my mum got the camera and started filming me in my wetsuit And I had to be honest, I said, come on mum. I said,
Yeah,
does this wetsuit make me look fat?
Brilliant.
Not the most stylish person you'll ever see. But thankfully we soon reached a second location and we could start to have our education about the local sea life. And as part of our wildlife education, one of the boat crew swam down to the sea floor and gave a giant clam a little bit of a tickle. But I have to say the colours of the coral at our second stop were a lot more vibrant, and I don't know if my camera is doing this justice, but I'm certainly enjoying the experience, and I know my mum is as well. And after another 45 minutes of snorkeling, that's right, it was time to get back to the boat because we had to make way towards our third and final snorkeling stop of the day. But first, me and my mum wanted to try and swim without these floaties because we did feel quite cumbersome having these floaty things around us, and it was a bit difficult to get around in the water. It was a bit slow going, just to see if I could also regain my balance and buoyancy with these flippers or very large fins on my feet. But even though I was feeling a lot more confident in myself being able to swim with these flippers on, these fins on my feet, I did also realise that if I wanted to truly enjoy the experience and not always having to think about keeping my head above the water, I was still going to need those floaty to keep me buoyant. And as you can see, our third stop is also very colourful as well, and the fish wildlife is just abundant in this area. But something else you might have observed between all three of our snorkeling sites is the sounds being emitted from the coral reefs. You hear those small clicking sounds, almost as if the fish and wildlife and the corals are all talking to one another. One of the other things we were told we might see at any of the diving locations was reef sharks, but neither me or my mum saw any sharks during any of the locations where we went snorkeling. Now you may think it's a good thing or a bad thing that you didn't get to experience sharks in the wild as well, but I'm okay with the fact I didn't personally encounter any sharks whilst I was out doing my snorkeling. But what I did encounter, especially on my third and final snorkeling trip, was miniature jellyfish. Now they had a very colourful blue band going around the outer rim of the jellyfish. Now they were tiny little creatures, and I just had to gently push them out of the way using my camera so they wouldn't go anywhere near my face. But after another 30-45 minutes snorkeling, it was time to make our way back towards our boat. And once we got back on the boat, the anchor was raised, and then it was a couple of hours journey back towards the marina at Port Douglas. But during that time, we got out of our wetsuits, which thankfully was a lot easier than putting the darn things on. And then everyone on the boat was pretty much exhausted after that exhilarating day of activity. And most people had just fallen asleep on the boat or just sitting outside, just taking in the sea breeze on their way to the marina. But once we got back to the marina, the coach was waiting for us to take us back to our accommodation. And once we got back to our accommodation, I still had one more task left to do before we went out and had our evening meal. And that being my Sunday video. I still had to sit down and record all of my previous week's stats for my weekly weigh-in video. So that's pretty much where my day finished. So therefore, this is where today's video is also going to finish. But as you've become accustomed, I'm going to finish this video off by looking back at a few memories of the last 24 hours in the form of the photographs that I've taken. So whilst you're enjoying those, I'm going to wrap the video up. So if you'd like to continue following us on our holiday adventure, by all means subscribe to my channel so you don't get to miss out on any future videos that I post, which happens to be tomorrow.